being a victim of narcissistic abuse. There's several different ones, and then there's a couple flyers back there with QR codes on them. If you scan the QR code, it'll put you in contact with my link tree or my my dot card so that you can connect. Is there a volume on here?
Just hold it close.
It's right here.
Yeah, that's good. Just hold it
You
close.
can't hear me back there?
Yeah, you should be able to. Just hold it close. I can turn it up if you need me to.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There's a couple flyers over there with the books. They've got QR codes on them. One QR code puts you through to my dot card. Everything, they're all connected once you get in there. The other one's my link tree. It's got my Spotify, our website for Sinners Fellowship Ministries, and several other resources.
It's also in chess. Also in chess app now. Chess app.
Oh yeah, and the chess app will be on there as well. So before we do anything else, I want to take a moment to thank you. Thank you to Valley Hope for the work you do every single day, for the lives you impact, and for the hope you help restore when people feel hope is gone. I want to give a special thank you to Janine for the invitation and the trust to stand here tonight, and to everyone who had a hand in organizing and making this winter extravaganza possible. And most importantly, thank you to everyone in attendance, alumni, supporters, staff, family members, and friends. The fact that you are here says something about your commitment, your courage, and your belief that recovery is worth celebrating. You have to bear with me, I got a little bit of stage fright. I am truly honored to be a part of this evening. My name is Pastor Jesse Brashears, and I want to be very clear right from the start. I'm not standing here tonight as someone who has figured it all out. I'm standing here as someone who survived a life that I didn't think that I would make it out of. My story doesn't begin with adulthood. It doesn't begin with drugs and alcohol. It begins at 10 years old. That was the age of my first legal trouble. Repeated trips in and out of juvenile detention centers, group homes, and eventually jails and prisons. From the age of 10 until the age of 36, I was on some form of supervision, probation, parole, oversight, or institutional control. For most of my life, freedom was not something I lived. It was something I visited. Inside that time frame were battles most people never see. Battles with mental health, battles with substance abuse, battles with identity, worth, and direction. By the time I was 15 years old, I wasn't just experimenting anymore. I was a full-blown alcoholic. I was drinking 4 to 6 pints of whiskey a day, every single day, until I was eventually incarcerated and placed in a group home. That wasn't rebellion, that was dependency. Alongside the alcohol came experimentation with substances, which eventually turned into addiction. By 18 and 19, I was addicted to methamphetamines and cocaine, both powder and crack, though crack became the drug of choice during that time. And even when some substances came and went, meth stayed. It stayed with me through my 20s, through my 30s, through incarceration, through relationships, through attempts at starting over. I remained in active addiction until May 10th, 2016. Addiction didn't just affect my life, it controlled it. It controlled my choices, my decisions, my priorities, my values. It destroyed my moral compass and allowed me to do things I never believed I was capable of doing. It cost me everything. And then it cost me everything again and again and again. It cost me time with my children that I can never get back. It cost me relationships that were broken beyond repair. It cost me the ability to maintain employment, to pay bills, and to live with stability. There were many times when I was homeless, with nowhere to sleep except the dope house, because it was the only place I could lay my head down and get a shower. That was my reality. Or at least, for a long time, I thought that was my reality. This was my story. This was my identity. This was how my life was always going to be. I didn't believe in futures. I believed in survival. And I know I'm not the only one in this room who's ever felt that way. So I want you to hear this clearly tonight. I am not here because my story is unique. I'm here because it is familiar. And if you've ever felt trapped by your past, defined by your mistakes, or convinced that you've gone too far for things to be turned around, then tonight is for you. Because what I believed was my reality was not the end of my story. And over the next couple of hours or hour, I want to walk you through how that life took shape, what finally caused it to break, what recovery really looks like, and how purpose can grow out of places we once believed were ruined. Not from theory, not from a textbook, but from lived experience. So let's go back, not to glorify the chaos, but to understand it. Because you can't heal what you don't face. Let me take you into the descent and how a life built inside institutions, addiction, and survival mentality shaped the man standing here today. The descent, at the cost of sounding repetitive, let's cover my descent again. When people hear the words addiction, they often imagine a single collapse, one bad decision, one bad night, one dramatic turning point. But many of us, addiction isn't a sudden fall. It's a slow descent, layer by layer, year by year, choice by choice, until one day the life you're living doesn't resemble the one you imagined you'd have. My descent didn't begin with drugs. It began with institutions replacing childhood. At 10 years old, I had my first legal trouble. 10 years old, I went on probation for the first time. And from that moment forward, my life followed a track that would shape my next 26 years. Juvenile detention centers, group homes, lockups, jails, and eventually prison after prison. From age 10 to 36, I lived under constant supervision, probation, parole, court oversights, or incarceration. Freedom wasn't something I knew how to live. It was something I briefly passed through. Those environments don't teach you how to grow. They teach you how to survive. You learn how to read people quickly, how to stay guarded, how to suppress emotion. You don't learn how to process fear, anger, or shame. You learn how to bury it. And buried pain doesn't disappear, it waits. By the time I was a teenager, I already felt disconnected from the world around me. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And when you don't belong anywhere, you'll attach yourself to whatever offers relief, even temporary. For me, that relief was alcohol. At first, drinking felt quiet. It slowed my thoughts. It lowered my defenses. Made me feel normal, or at least less broken. But by 15 years old, it was no longer occasional. I was drinking 4 to 6 pints of whiskey a day, not partying, not celebrating, drinking to function, drinking to keep myself level, drinking to make it through the day. Here's the part that's important to understand. I wasn't just drinking what I could afford. I was doing whatever it took to keep alcohol coming. I was burglarizing gas stations and liquor stores to support my drinking. We didn't have bottles here and there. We had cases upon cases of liquor. At that age, this wasn't rebellion anymore. It was dependence, back to my desperation. And that behavior brought consequences. More incarceration, more placements, more time removed from real life. As I got older, substances multiplied. Alcohol was no longer enough. Experimentation became patterns. Patterns became habits. Habits became addiction. At 18 and 19, I was addicted to methamphetamine and cocaine, both powder and rock, with crack becoming dominant for quite some time. Meth, however, truly never left my life. It followed me into adulthood, through incarceration, through relationships, through every attempt to start over. Addiction didn't make me careless. It made me focused. Focused on the next drink, the next hit, the next way to get through the moment. And when addiction takes control, it reorders everything. Family becomes secondary. Responsibility becomes optional. Morals become negotiable. Not because you don't care, but because addiction rewires what feels necessary for survival. Incarceration became a revolving door. Jail, release, probation, violation, back again. At no point between age 10 and age 36 was I ever truly free. Always supervised, always monitored, always one decision away from losing what stability I had. When you live like that long enough, you stop planning the future. You plan for the next consequence. Addiction cost me everything. It cost me time with my children that I could never replace, moments I missed, memories that never happened. It destroyed relationships, not just through absence, but through broken trust. Because addiction doesn't just destroy the person using, it fractures everyone connected to them. Employment never lasted, bills piled up. Stability was something I watched other people have. And there were many seasons where I was homeless, sleeping wherever I could. More than once, the only place I had to lay my head was the dope house. And let me tell you, before I got incarcerated the last time, it had gotten to the point to where my parents had finally said enough is enough. And because of my broken trust, because of my violence, my thievery, I wasn't welcome at their house. I wasn't welcome at any positive house that I could have gone to. But I had keys to every dope house in 4 counties. There's a time for tough love, and there's a time for supportive love. The supportive love didn't work for me. It just enabled me. It took that tough love of me laying in a bunk in prison. Nobody to call, no visits, no letters, no money on my books, for me to open my eyes and say, I am really, truly alone. It's time to change. That's how far my standard had fallen. And yet, I still believed I was in control. That's the lie addiction tells us best. It convinces us we're choosing this, when in reality, it's choosing for us. Over time, my moral compass collapsed. Things I once swore I'd never do became things I justified. Lines that once felt unmovable became flexible. Not because I wanted to be that person, but because addiction required it. And once morals erode, identity follows. This chaos became normal. The life became what I believed was my reality. But what I didn't know yet was this: the descent wasn't proof that I was beyond saving. It was the place where denial finally ran out. Because there comes a moment, and many of you know this moment, when numbing no longer works, when surviving no longer feels like living, when the weight of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of change. That moment came for me. And when it did, everything I believed about myself, addiction, and recovery was about to be confronted. Let me tell you about the moment the descent stopped and the fight for my life truly began. There comes a moment in addiction that's hard to explain unless you've lived it. It's not always dramatic. It's not always loud. And it's rarely heroic. It's the moment when you realize that everything you've been doing to survive is killing you. For me, that moment came after years of repeating the same cycle. Jail, release, promise, relapse, loss. At some point, I stopped believing my own lies. Not because I suddenly became honest, but because the lies stopped working. I had told myself every version of the story. I can stop when I want. This is just a rough patch. I've got it all under control. I'm just dabbling. I'll stop when I'm ready. This time will be different. But the truth was simple and brutal. Nothing was different, except the damage was deeper. By that point in my life, I had lost almost everything more times than I could count. And here's something important to understand. Rock bottom isn't one single place. It's a realization. It's the moment you understand that if nothing changes, nothing changes. And eventually, there won't be anything left to love or to lose. On May 10th, 2016, I didn't walk into recovery confident. I walked in exhausted. Exhausted from running. Exhausted from failing. Exhausted from being someone I didn't recognize anymore. It didn't come in believing I was strong. It came in realizing I wasn't. That day wasn't about motivation. It was about surrender. And surrender isn't weakness. It's the first honest decision that an addict can make. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to negotiate with my addiction. I stopped trying to control it. I stopped trying to manage it. I stopped trying to outthink it. I admitted that I had spent decades avoiding. I cannot do this alone. Early recovery didn't feel like victory. It felt like exposure. Suddenly there were no substances to numb the fear, no chaos to distract the pain, no lies to hide behind, just me and everything I had been running from. I had to learn how to sit with emotions I had never learned to process. shame, guilt, regret, fear. And I had to learn something even harder: patience. Patience with the process, patience with myself, patience with rebuilding trust I had broken. Recovery didn't give me my life back overnight. It gave me something far more valuable: a chance to rebuild it honestly, slowly, intentionally, one decision at a time. And here's where something important happened. I didn't do this alone. Recovery is not an individual achievement. It's a community effort. It's built in rooms like this, in conversations, in accountability, in relationships with people who understand the language of addiction because they've lived it. Something powerful happens when you stop surrounding yourself with people who enable your destruction and start surrounding yourself with people who challenge your growth. That's where brotherhood is formed. Not in chaos, but in consistency. Which brings me to my friend and brother, Jamie. Jamie and I actually ran in many of the same circles during our addiction. Same environments, same chaos, same kind of lives. But here's the thing. We didn't really know each other back then. We knew of each other. We didn't build a friendship in active addiction, but we built it in sobriety. Our brotherhood wasn't formed through destruction. It was formed through recovery, through showing up, through honesty, through accountability, through learning how to live again and not just exist. Jamie is someone who lived a similar life, faced similar battles, and he has learned not just how to stay sober, but how to succeed in sobriety. He is proof that recovery doesn't just remove substances, it rebuilds lives. So tonight, before we move forward, I want you to hear another voice, another story, another testimony of what's possible when surrender turns into commitment. Please join me in welcoming my friend, my brother, and a man walking proof of recovery, Jamie.
Guys, I've never done this before, so please bear with me. Kind of like him, I got stage fright. My name's Jamie. I'm an addict.
Jamie.
21 years. I was on methamphetamines pretty hard. Destroyed my life. I destroyed my kids' lives. Destroyed my mom's life. Everybody was ashamed of me. It started back when I was young, basically about 10 years old like him. I didn't know really who my mom was. Didn't live with her until I turned 10. And then it was a different life for me. My stepfather was abusive. And that was really hard to be taken away from my family here in Missouri, be moved out of state, be moved from different state to state. So I was looking for a way to get out. So I did anything and everything I could to get in trouble. Maybe I'd get to come back home to Missouri. It started with simple things, just throwing rocks at the neighbor's window. Maybe mom would get mad at me and send me back. Well, as time went on, those things wasn't working. She was trying to keep a hold of me, and I wanted out more and more. Just got tired of the abuse, got tired of being away from my friends and family. So I started into drugs. It started, helping me cope with things a little better, I thought. But I was ending up in more trouble, thieving, getting kicked out of school, getting more beatings at home, and it just got worse and worse from there. Eventually, for what it took for me is I lost my daughter to the state. And at that point in time, I decided that that was enough. I've been sober now for 4 years. And thank you guys. After all of that, I've accomplished more than I thought I ever would. I always wanted to be a truck driver. I went out and got my CDLs on my own. I've now got a beautiful family. I've got 4 daughters, 2 sons. You know, I'm living a good life now. But it takes for you to get it in your head that this is enough. You can't let it keep taking control of you. I was in and out of jail, in and out of prison. I mean, I've got 6 years down. That's not even counting the county time that I did. But every time I get out, the pain, the anger and everything was always still there. So I always went back to what felt good. What made me hide all that, never facing it. But the day that I got the call that I lost my daughter to the state, man, that's when it hit me. That's when I realized that I'm not in this life just for myself. I have created actual other human beings that depend on me. My older kids, I was in and out of their lives. And once I stopped and realized, you know, I've destroyed their lives just the same as I have mine. And so overnight, it was sobriety for me. I didn't have the chance to go to Valley Hope or anything. It was just overnight, done, cold turkey, quit. 21 years. 21 years I was on that. And I just want to be up here tonight, which thank you for having me. I just want to tell you all that there is hope. There is hope. There are people out there that will not turn their backs on you. All you got to do is reach out. Ask for the help. Somebody's going to be there to help you. And if nobody in this room will help each other, call me. Come talk to me. I will always be there to listen to what you got to say. Help you through your struggles. Because everybody needs a hand. Jesse's right. It's not something that you can do by yourself. You have to have help. Me and my wife got clean together. We've both been sober for 4 years. And we have a beautiful family. We have a nice home, nice vehicles. It's there, guys. You just got to get it in your head to do it, and do it. Ain't nobody going to do it for you. Nobody's going to hand you this world. Nobody's going to hand you a paycheck unless you work for it. But you just got to do it. But guys, my name is Jamie. I'm 49 years old. I've been sober for 4 years. I appreciate y'all letting me be here. Thank you.
Good job, bud.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move forward, can we do something together? Please help me thank Jamie one more time for his honesty, his courage, and his willingness to share his story.
Hey, one more thing, guys. I'm proud of y'all for getting help. Proud of y'all for being sober. Keep up the good work. I gotta get home with my kids, guys. Thank you.
Be careful, brother. Sharing like that isn't easy. And it matters more than most people realize. So thank you, brother. One of the most important things I learned early in recovery is this. Sobriety doesn't just remove something from your life. It makes room for something new. But what fills that space? That part matters. Before I talk about church, rebuilding, and business, I need to pause and recognize someone who played a critical role at the very beginning. When I first decided to get clean, my wife and I were not married yet. Carrie and I had separated. She was my fiance at the time, And that separation was one of the darkest moments in my life. Everything felt like it was falling apart all at once. And in that moment, the first place I went, the first person I thought to turn to was Janine. She was the light in my darkness. When everything felt unstable, when I didn't trust my own thoughts, when I didn't know what my next steps should be, she was there. Without her immediate support, I honestly don't know if I would have taken the steps necessary to begin my sobriety journey. And I don't say this lightly. Janine didn't just show up once. She has been one of my most reliable, steady, and encouraging people in my recovery. She supported my journey. She helped guide my steps. She encouraged my drive to do better every single step of the way. Janine is an amazing person, and she is absolutely worthy of recognition for all that she does, not just for me, but for so many people walking this road. So tonight, Janine, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything you've done, and I love you.
I love you. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Because I know where you started. And you're a great man.
Thank you. Now, in the second week of our sobriety, my beautiful wife Carrie and I made a decision. We decided that if we were going to rebuild our lives, we needed to rebuild our foundation. So we decided to go to church. Not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but out of need. We walked, literally walked, to the church I had attended as a child. And when we arrived, we realized their service wasn't for another hour. So we turned around and started walking back home. And on that walk, one of those moments that only makes sense looking back, we ran into a couple friends who were on their way to their church. They asked a simple question. Do you want to go with us? So we said yes. We walked in that morning broken, unsure, early in sobriety, and we were welcomed with open arms. No judgment, no suspicion, no hesitation, just welcome. And that day, the message delivered from the pulpit hit me in a way I'd never experienced before. It didn't feel general. It felt personal. It felt like every word was meant specifically for us. The clarity, the truth, the compassion, it reached straight into my heart. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel talked at. I felt spoken to. Many of you may know him as Chaplain Scott Elric. Delivered a message after message that hit straight to the heart. And I want to say this publicly and without hesitation. I credit my walk in recovery, my renewed trust in the church, and my ability to rebuild my faith to his leadership and obedience to God's calling. That church became a place of healing, not pressure. A place of truth, not shame. A place where broken people could become whole. And here's something important to understand. Sobriety didn't magically fix my life. Recovery wasn't easy. It came with struggles. It came with hurdles. It came with moments where quitting felt easier than continuing. But for the first time in my life, it was a life worth fighting for. Slowly, things began to change. Not overnight, but honestly. Trust began to rebuild. Consistency began to matter. Routine replaced chaos, and hope, real hope, started to take root. Not long after, something deeply meaningful happened. I married my beautiful wife, Carrie, in that very church, with Brother Scott officiating. That moment wasn't just a wedding, it was a marker, a declaration that the past is no longer defining our future. Then came another step of faith. I stepped out and started a business, friends and family handyman. Not because it was easy, not because it was guaranteed, but because recovery taught me something powerful. If I could rebuild my life, I could build something new. That business didn't just survive, it grew. It became stable, respected, reliable, and today I still operate it successfully. In fact, and this still humbles me, we were just recognized as top 5 of 25 for our trade in all of mid-Missouri. That didn't happen because I was perfect. It happened because I was present. And here's the truth I want you to hear. It happened. Life after the fall is possible. Healing is possible. Restored relationships are possible. Purpose is possible. Not because sobriety guarantees ease, but because sobriety makes growth possible. Recovery didn't give me a perfect life. It gave me an honest one. And I would choose that every single time. So if you're early in sobriety tonight, if you're rebuilding, if you're wondering whether it's worth it, let me tell you from experience, it absolutely is. It's worth every struggle you go through to get there. And what rises from the ashes is often stronger than whatever stood before the fire. And we're not done yet. Because recovery isn't just about rebuilding your life. It's about discovering why you were spared to rebuild it. And that's where purpose finds its picture. Recovery doesn't just give you your life back. It gives you a choice. A choice about what you're going to do with the life you've been given back. For a long time, I thought sobriety was the finish line. If I could just stay clean. If I could just avoid a relapse. If I could just keep my life from falling apart again, then I'd be okay. But somewhere along the way, I realized something important. Sobriety is not the destination. It's the doorway. Once the chaos quiets down, once the fog lifts, once you're no longer running from consequence to consequence, a question shows up. And it's a heavy one. Why am I still here? Because let's be honest, many of us should not be here. By statistics alone, by medical odds, by legal outcomes, and yet, here we are. Not just alive, but rebuilding. That doesn't happen by accident. For me, purpose didn't arrive all at once. It revealed itself slowly. First, through gratitude, then through responsibility, then through a growing realization that my pain wasn't wasted. That the very experiences I spent decades ashamed of were now the very things that allowed me to connect with others honestly. Here's the truth most people don't talk about. Recovery gives you credibility you can't fake. Not because of what you read, not because of what you studied, but because of what you survived. But because thank you. Sorry. Because of what you survived. When you lived it, people can hear it. They can feel it. At some point, I stopped asking, how do I move on from the past? And I started asking, how can my past serve a purpose? That question changed everything. It led me to ministry. It led me to outreach. It led me to walk alongside people who were exactly where I used to be. Homeless, broken, ashamed, addicted, afraid. And instead of saying, you need to fix yourself, I could say, I've been there, and you're not alone. Faith became different for me in recovery. It wasn't fear-based. It wasn't rule-based. It wasn't about pretending to be something I wasn't. It became rational. It became honesty. About showing up broken and saying, I don't have this figured out, but I'm willing. And here's something I believe deeply. God doesn't waste pain. Not yours, not mine. The very thing we thought disqualified us often becomes the qualification. Recovery taught me that success isn't just about money, stability, or recognition. Success is waking up sober, showing up consistently, being present for the people who matter, living in a way that doesn't require apology the next morning. Success is peace, and purpose doesn't always look like a pulpit. Sometimes it looks like being a parent you never were, being a friend who answers the phone, being the example someone else didn't have, being the person who stayed when things got hard. If you're wondering whether your life has meaning beyond staying sober, let me answer that plainly. It does. Your story matters. Your recovery matters. Your continued commitment matters. Someone is watching how you live. Someone is learning what's possible by observing you quietly. And that's why alumni events like this matter. Because recovery doesn't end when treatment ends. It continues in community, in accountability, in shared experience, in purpose. If you're early in sobriety tonight, let me say this clearly. You don't need to know your entire future right now. You just need to stay faithful to today. Purpose reveals itself as you stay sober, not before. And if you're years into sobriety, your responsibility isn't just to maintain it, it is to model it. Because the next person walking through the doors is watching you for proof that this life is real. I didn't survive addiction just to live quietly. I survived it to live intentionally. And so did you. As sobriety settles in, as stability returned, as life began to make sense again, there was something I couldn't shake. And it wasn't guilt. It was grief. Because while my life was being rebuilt, I kept watching others lose theirs.
Yeah.
Friends, people I had run with, people I had sat in cells with, people I had laughed with, detoxed with, and promised sobriety with. Some lost their battle with substance use disorders. Some lost their battle with mental health struggles. Some passed on too soon, and others are still alive, but doing life on the installment plan, in and out of institutions, in and out of treatment, in and out of freedom, alive, but not really living. And here's the part that haunted me. Many of them wanted help. They just didn't know where they were allowed to ask for it. I began to notice a pattern. There were people who desperately needed support, but felt unwelcome in traditional settings. People who felt judged before they were heard, labeled before they were known, dismissed because of their past. People who didn't fit the mold. People like me. I had sat in churches where I felt like I had to hide my story. I had sat in rooms where honesty felt dangerous. And I knew something deep in my spirit. If recovery and faith were only available to the put together, then we were losing the very people who needed them most. And that's where the vision of Sinners Fellowship Ministries was born. Not out of ambition, out of loss. This ministry didn't come from a business plan. It came from funerals, from overdoses, from phone calls that started with, "Did you hear about so-and-so?" From the realization that silence was killing people. Sinners Fellowship Ministries exists for one reason: to create a safe, non-judgmental support system for people battling addiction, mental health struggles, trauma, and shame. People who feel like they don't belong anywhere else. Our mission is simple, but not easy. We meet people where they are, not where others think they should be. We don't demand perfection. We don't require polished language. And we don't expect a clean past. We offer honesty, accountability, compassion, faith, and community. All at the same time, because here's what I know to be true. People don't heal when they're shamed. They heal when they're seen. As the ministry grew, another realization hit me. Not everyone is ready to walk into a group. Not everyone is ready to raise their hand. Not everyone feels safe speaking out loud. But many people will read. Many people will sit alone at night, desperate for words that make sense of what they're feeling. So I started writing. My authorship didn't come from wanting to be an author. It came from wanting to reach people I couldn't physically reach. People in jail cells, people in treatment centers, people on couches, in cars, under bridges, or locked inside their own minds. The goal of those books is not inspiration alone. It's understanding. To explain why the mind works the way that it does in addiction, why shame feels paralyzing, why change feels impossible until it isn't, and why relapse, fear, and doubt don't mean failure. They're written for people who feel talked about, but rarely talked to. And everything we do through the ministry flows from the same heart. We don't claim to replace treatment. We don't claim to replace professionals. We exist to walk alongside, to support, to encourage, to remind people they're not broken beyond repair. Because the truth is this: recovery doesn't fail people. Isolation does. Every life we lost hurts. But what hurts more is knowing some of those losses were preventable. If someone had felt safe enough to stay connected. That's why Sinners Fellowship Ministries exist. Not to be louder than others, but to be present when others have walked away. And I want to say this clearly: especially to the alumni in the room tonight. If you've made it this far in your recovery, your story doesn't end with staying sober. You carry credibility. You carry understanding. You carry hope, whether you realize it or not. This ministry is proof of what happens when pain is redirected instead of buried, when loss becomes motivation, when survival becomes service. I didn't survive addiction just to build a better life for myself. I survived it to help create a place where others could believe that a better life was possible for them too. As we come to a close tonight, I want to leave you with something simple, but not easy. Recovery is not proven by how far you've come. It is proven by how intentionally you keep going. Every person in this room is standing in a place that was once uncertain. There was a time when sobriety felt impossible, when peace felt unreachable, when tomorrow felt unsafe. And yet, here you are. Not by accident, not by luck, but by effort, surrender, and choice. I want you to hear this clearly. Your recovery matters, not just to you, but to people you haven't even met yet. There is someone watching your life quietly, learning what's possible by observing how you live. You may never know their name, but your consistency may save their life. Sobriety isn't about never struggling again. It's about refusing to go back to silence when you do. It's about staying connected, staying honest, staying accountable. And if you're early in recovery tonight, if you think things feel fragile, let me tell you something you don't hear enough. You don't have to have this figured out. You just have to stay willing. Willing to show up, willing to ask for help, willing to not isolate. That willingness will carry you further than confidence ever could. If you're years into sobriety, your responsibility isn't to coast. It's to lead by example. Not loudly, not perfectly, but consistently. Because recovery is not sustained by inspiration, it's sustained by presence. Some of us were spared when others weren't. That's not guilt, that's responsibility. Not to save everyone, but to stay available. I want to challenge you tonight with this. Don't let your recovery become something you keep only to yourself. Let it show up in how you treat people, how you speak, how you listen, how you stay. And when life gets hard again, because it will, remember this: you have already survived worse. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. So as you leave this place tonight, stay connected, stay honest, stay humble, stay sober. And when the voice shows up, the one that tells you you're alone or finished or unworthy, answer it with truth. Because your life has value. Your story has meaning. And your recovery is worth protecting. Thank you for allowing me to share space with you tonight. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your commitment. And thank you for continuing to choose life one day at a time.